Good day everyone, happy day of the week. So today's video is quite a special one. For a little background, as part of the work I do with the Rhode Island Computer Museum, I was asked to come onto a local news site, GoLocalProv, and as part of that, I was asked to speak about vintage and retro video games. So I decided to show you guys all of that. So I'm going to go ahead and play that clip in just a minute. If you want to check the links down below, I did link down to the original video and to their website and also to the Rhode Island Computer Museum website. So enjoy.
Everyone, thanks for joining us here in the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. I'm Molly O'Brien. This is Dean Duffy, who's been a volunteer at the Rhode Island Computer Museum since about 2012, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. So today we're going to talk about vintage or retro video games, which I think is so fun. What did you bring for us today?
Alright, so I brought with us today an example of the original system and the old one. So we have, this is the original Atari 2600, or the VCS as they called it back in '77. As we can see, it hooks up with the old cord. And then we have this guy, which came out, these actually come out every year for about 4 years now, or more. And these are everything this was, but 30 games built in, or the new ones, I think up to 80 games now, in these little tiny units. And all the buttons are represented on here, just no cartridge slot.
So people right now at home are like, oh my gosh, I totally had one of those. And you can still...
It's all here.
You can get a new one.
You can get a new one.
Essentially.
$40. And I think the newest ones, this one's an older one already. This is the version 2. They're up to 7, I think, now. And it hooks up, it has wireless controllers for these. And there's even a new one that comes out later this year that has HDMI on it.
Oh my goodness.
One of these, which I don't think you really need HDMI for the graphics this puts out, but it does it.
Oh my, so, and they all look the same.
They all look the same. The newer one looks a little more streamlined. It actually takes cartridges again, but you know, definitely more than that one.
I don't think I had an Atari growing up, but I had, do you remember Intellivision? I
do. I have one at home still.
That was my first gaming system, which I thought was so fun.
Yeah.
And then you brought a Nintendo.
I brought in, so this is the original Nintendo down here. This is from '85 when these had come out. And you know, they took the cartridges here, which I actually did bring with me. The old cartridges. Unfortunately, Duck Hunt doesn't work with these modern TVs nowadays, so we're kind of Duck Hunt no more on those. But everything else we can play still. So
I used to only do the discs because it made me sad to shoot the ducks.
You were caring for them. It's okay.
Yeah, that's right. And so this is they made like a modern version.
They made a modern version. This came out last year. This is the NES Classic. I have an aftermarket piece where I have a wireless controller for with a few extra buttons in case it was needed. But to show you guys, the controllers that came with it do look identical to the old system. They just have a newer type connector on them.
So tell me just a little bit about what you do at the museum when it comes to games, because I'm sure, so we were just, my first guest was with Salve Regina, and we were talking about just virtual reality and simulations that they do in the military. And I was talking to her and I was like, you know what, we're having the oldest versions of video games come in, and then we're talking about how virtual reality is helping in military situations. So when you're talking to kids or anybody that comes into the museum, do you kind of explain the evolution of video games?
I have a timeline that I've made up myself of going all the way back to even before these guys, going back to the 50s when they actually were able to put a really rudimentary tennis game on an oscilloscope, way back when, and then go up into the 60s or 70s when they got to, you know, this small of these units. As far as the museum goes, I like to help with the preservation of everything. So the examples I brought here are good preservations, you know, newly made ones of old systems. So nobody will forget these things, but it makes it accessible for everybody again, because unlike the new games where you start them and you have to sit through 10 minutes of story and you have to install the game and run updates and all that kind of stuff, these games, you plug them and you go. That's it. I mean, you might have to blow in the cartridges sometimes to get the Nintendo working. But for the most part, they work every time, which is just really nice. No updates, well, they might crash, but, you know, for the most part, they work all the time.
Why do you think it's important to preserve these games?
Even with the new games now, a lot of the art form and how the old games play, they still bring into the new games. And I think it's really fun. So they don't reinvent the wheel. They always learn from the older stuff and implement the new stuff because, I mean, they learned how to make it fun a long time ago. Now they just improve upon it.
I like that. What do you think we can learn? New techniques and learn about the technology. From these kind of games, from the very simple forms. Can kids learn?
Oh yeah. So there are tutorials and stuff online because the processors in these old systems are just 8-bit processors. So kids and anybody who's interested in it, they can kind of look online and find how to build games for these, which would be far simpler than trying to build it on a modern system where they have to go to school. You can go to school for any of these. With this stuff, it's really kind of fun to dig into the old things and almost go bit by bit and learn how they worked and how the code worked and kind of try to make your own stuff.
So is it, so from just going into the museum and being able to see these kind of games, that could really get a child interested in coding, right?
Oh yeah. As far as the coding part goes, I know at the museum they do run workshops where they use Scratch, which is a little animated cat that you can actually use program type commands to make him move around the screen. So it's basically building a cartoon using programming language. So you could have him take 3 steps, jump, take 3 steps, meow, and you program all of those to make him do that.
That's so cool. All right, so we're gonna take a look at some of these games. So we have so what were your favorite gamings? But I'm gonna have you turn and
talk
to the camera, see if you can. We're gonna scroll through some of these. They have all of the classics on here.
Oh yeah, so all the great games are on here. A few more have been added by myself that just the classics I wanted on here. So we have Legend of Zelda, Super Mario Brothers, Tetris, Galaga, a lot of just the really, really fun games.
Oh my gosh. Let's see. Okay, so let's see if I can. You said use A and B?
Yeah.
See if I remember how to do this.
Hit start first.
Hit start.
Yep.
I had one of these, and I thought it was the coolest thing. Of course, my mom didn't ever let me really play video games. Let's see if I can. Yeah, I did it.
You got it.
So when people come into the museum that aren't familiar with us, are they like, what is this stuff? Because they probably are used to all the fancy things. Tony was telling me, what was that game called, Tony? Dig Dug.
We actually see a lot of when parents are bringing their kids in. The kids actually will recognize Mario. I think Mario is. Everybody knows who Mario is.
Everybody knows who he is.
And then the parents actually get excited seeing this too. and I've seen parents literally kind of take over and stop playing when the kids aren't doing as well.
Like, no, you're not doing that right.
Yeah, they don't forget. They know how to go back instantly.
I'm surprised. I haven't played a video game in probably 20 years, and I'm surprised I remember how to do this. What other systems do you have at the Rhode Island Computer Museum?
So at the museum we have Nintendo, we have Sega at the museum. We have a TI-99, which is kind of a hybrid of a computer and a game system from the early 80s. We have a ColecoVision, a Coleco Adam. I believe we do have an Intellivision down there.
I have no idea what those are called.
Coleco Adam was basically take the ColecoVision and make it into a computer and put a fancy new case on it. That's
cool.
Yeah, so they did it back then.
Oh, that was not great, but I did it. Look, I made it to the Not bad for not having played this since you were 9 years old, right? This is so fun. So what do you think the benefits are from just learning and getting familiar and kind of preserving these games?
I just think it's not forgetting about these games. So like I said before, no one's going to forget these, but I think it's great to kind of go back to them and just remember a simpler time when it was a little more fun, a little less structured. Some of these new games almost kind of hold your hand halfway through the game, and these kind of games they just threw you in. Well, you got the instructions if you actually read them, and
I can't believe you have an instruction book.
Yeah.
Who saves this stuff?
I do.
This is amazing, and it's in great condition.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, this is great. Look at it has their names and everything. Mm-hmm. And I think that's so true too, because you have generations of people who don't forget about this stuff. You dress up as Mario for Halloween, or
exactly. I think I might have done that recently.
Yeah, exactly. Or you name your dog after one of the characters in here. So That's pretty neat. Do you have a favorite, or do people come in and kind of talk about their favorite games or with you? Or
most people, when they come in and they see the stack of games sitting there, they instantly want to play Mario. Mario is really big, Tetris, and Duck Hunt. Those are probably the most popular ones. We have a few more. We have had Dig Dug requests.
Tony!
Yeah, we've had that. We've had Galaga, which is one of my favorites. You know, a lot of fun games.
A lot of fun. So what other how do we X out of this to get back to a different...
We can just
you hit the menu button.
Main screen,
you hit eject, restart. What are some of the other educational opportunities you see with the retro gaming?
I don't know. As far as going by that, I think playing into coding is the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Because a lot of kids, they get into coding by something that interests them. So in the same way, they've kind of taken Minecraft and they made a coding version of Minecraft where instead of just playing the game, you're actually building elements for the game. I know when Dan was here, he talked about the Raspberry Pi. There's a version of Minecraft for that, which is geared towards the coding aspect. The Scratch game that I talked about earlier, that's also on the Raspberry Pi that Dan brought with when he was here.
When he was here. And so you said, I was pretty decent at Tetris. What's probably the newest version video game that you have? Video system, I should say.
I have a Nintendo Switch. That's probably the newest one, and the first game I bought for that was Tetris.
And is that a handheld?
It's both. It's a handheld you can take it with you, and then it docks into a little device so you can plug it into your TV.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. I think it's pretty neat. It's really kind of really brought things to a new level with it.
Okay. So when Dan was here last time, he was saying that people will come in and rent certain just different computers from the museum, and just to get the certain time periods like that. Do you think we'll end up seeing that when it comes to these video games, you know, whether it's movies or TV shows or whatever it is?
Oh yeah, something like that. I know, I believe it's the Goldbergs on TV.
Yeah.
If you look in the background of that show, you'll see 80s everything. And being props on the show, they have the best of the best. They have the best toys. They have the best games. Everything. If you keep an eye out the whole time you're watching it, especially in the kids' room, you see everything on that show.
And you kind of I always wonder where they find that stuff. Another one, fresh off the boat. It's like the 90s.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I was like, oh, look at those dirt. Like, look, where do they get those shoes? You know, you always kind of wonder that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So where can people, you guys are located in North Kingstown.
Yeah, North Kingstown.
And do you ever do, like old tournaments with video games?
Not as of yet. It's been talked about. It's just kind of using the space for it, because right now we're always geared up for the learning lab. So we could probably reformat the area for a little kind of retro game night. It just depends on what we want to do.
Where to go from there. Well, Dean, this has been really fun. We have to switch things over to Business Monday, so my Tetris skills definitely need some improvement. I remember doing this on my Game Boy and being so addicted, right? Sitting in the car.
That game sold almost every Game Boy that came out. People wanted that game.
You wanted that when you sit in the car and go on the road trips, right?
Definitely.
That's kind of what did it. I mean, this is probably good for you in some way, right?
Oh, yeah. You know, patterns and puzzles, why not? Keeps your brain working.
This is the only puzzle that I actually like doing. Dean Duffy from the Rhode Island Computer Museum, thanks so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
It was a lot of fun.
I feel like everybody probably wants to come and play.